Hey guys, so let's go ahead and now finish out this creation part, right? The create part of the CRUD system by adding the actual programmatic portion of it, right? So in the last video we basically just made it so that it just shows the HTML part, it just shows the front end part, and now we're actually going to make it work. So in not many, but in some jobs you will actually find that these two things that I'm doing, these two jobs, the last video and this video, are actually separate people. Not ideal, but sometimes in some places they have a junior developer do all of the HTML part and the design part basically, and then they have an actual developer, like a senior developer, do this part right here and the programmatic part after the design has been done. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it that's to be that way. In my last project that I was working on, they decided to do that towards the end of it, and I think it actually creates more confusion. So be expected to know both, to know the design and know the programmatic part of it, the development part. I say it and I cannot say it enough. When you're a front-end developer, you should know anything from the wireframing and designing and the user experience, accessibility, all of this great stuff, all the way to the front-end coding such as HTML, CSS, things like that, to the programmatic part of the front end such as the JavaScript frameworks, Angular, React, all of this stuff, to the API requests and API calls and all this CRUD system stuff. And that's it. That's basically where it stops as a front end developer should go. If you want to learn past that, if you want to learn how to set up a backend environment and service your own front end code with your own API and your own stuff and all of this crazy stuff, then you will become a full stack developer. Admittedly, I am not a full stack developer. I am very limited when it comes to my backend development techniques, but I actually chose to be that way. I enjoy the front end, and even though I could make more money or find more jobs, and as a full stack developer, I'm a believer that you have to do what you love, and I find backend development kind of tedious, and it's not for me. But I really enjoy the front end development. I'm a visual person. I love instant gratification, and when I put something on the screen and I see it the design come alive, I feel like I gave birth to it, right? Backend could sometimes become pretty stagnant where nothing really happens. You're not really creating. You're just basically adding plumbing inside the walls. You're not really painting and decorating the walls and doing things that are pretty, right? So hey, can't blame me for that, right? You gotta do what you love. All right, so enough of that. I do want to say one more thing. I see if I haven't talked enough already. I do want to say one more thing. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and do so below. If not, let's just move on. But I'm in the process of fixing whatever is going on with my bell, that people can click on the bell to get notifications. But if you can, that's great. If you can't, I will try to figure out what the heck is going on there. If not, then at least bookmark it just so you can come back and check out the next videos, because I have a daily video almost coming out every day. All right, let's move on. All right, so we're not going to use the styles, so we're gonna put that away, and we are going to do this because this is not going to do this. So I'm gonna put that. Wait, that was the add task. Oh, I'm sorry. We are going to need that. We are going to need that, right? Yes, we are going to need the add task. What is it? Okay, so we are going to need the add task. We are going to need the add task component as well, and we're going to need that as well. All right, cool. So let's leave excuse me, let's leave those there where they are. And let's start with the add task component. So we have to create a couple of stuff here, but before we actually get there, we need to bring in something to the app modules. So we're gonna bring the app modules up, and right above the HTTP, underneath the HTTP client right there, we're gonna bring in a new module, and that's going to be and what is it, forms module. Let me make sure. Yeah, forms module. So we're gonna bring in forms module right there, that one from Angular Forms, and we're gonna copy that and paste it underneath. Put a comma there and paste it underneath the imports and hit save. So by using the forms module, we are able to now pick up some reactiveness from the forms and being able to use the model that is inside the forms itself, which is kind of like what you will call state in React. Okay, or it acts like it. It's not the same. It acts a little bit like it. All right, so let's go back to the add components, and let's see. So the next thing we're going to do in the add components is going to be setting up some of these properties right here for these elements that we are going to be using, or targeting basically. Don't think we're going to need the ng on init. No, I don't think we will. So we can just basically get rid of that. Right. Yeah, we're not gonna need the ng on init because we're not really gonna run anything in the form itself on load. Everything that we're gonna run in the form is going to be on the click of the button. Okay. I'm hoping you're getting the hang of what the ng on init means, because I know that the form by default creates this ng on init when you create the component, but that's because it kind of expects you to do something with it on load, but it doesn't always. So if you're not going to use it, there isn't really a need to put a lifecycle method there. Okay, that is not going to be used. But so let's see. So we're going to, above the constructor here, we're gonna set up this this stuff here. So it's gonna be, the first one is gonna be the text, and that's going to be of string, and the other one was day. That's also gonna be a string, and then the other one is gonna be reminder, which is a whoa, there you go, which is a boolean. And we're going to actually initialize that one to false. All right, so how did I get these names here? Did I just randomly pick the names? Well, let's look at the add task component HTML. Actually, we get rid of the app modules. We're done with that. If you notice, they are going to be text, as you can see there. Where is it? Actually, I haven't even added the ng modules yet, so this doesn't make sense. All right. But I do want to show you where I actually did pick that from the task object itself. ID, which is basically just going to be generated when by the backend, text, day, and reminder. So these right here, if I were to just, for example, name this do, for example, it will create problems later on when I try to push it up and like submit the new task, because it will try to find something of property do and give a value to it, and it doesn't exist. If you look at it, there is nothing in there in the schema, in the interface or schema, same thing, that is called do, right? So that's why that's what these things exist. This thing right here will be what the backend will use to compare what they are going to be storing based on what you're sending. So they have to be the same. Okay, so we have that, and then now underneath the instructor, let's see. Let's just stop that for a second, and let's go to the component HTML instead now, and let's wire these things up, these properties. Let's wire these properties up today. Now that we have the forms modules working. So what we're going to do here is, let's open up some space like that, like that. We're gonna do that to pretty much all of them because we're gonna add some more stuff, and it's easier if you have a little bit of a space there. And so we're gonna add a couple of properties to each field. We're gonna add a name, and then we're gonna add a dual binding property here. Not property? I forget the name. Directive, dual binding directive, which is called ng model. Okay, and that's why it has this brackets, this weird brackets here, because it's telling you that it's working back and forth. It's sending stuff and reading stuff. That's why it's called double binding, because whatever you put here, not only is going to read it from your backend, not backend, but from here, from your TypeScript file, but it's also going to put whatever you put in there, whatever you write in there, and send it to your TypeScript file. So it's a double binding thing. Okay, and then this is going to be called exactly the property that we used to name it, which was text. Okay, I called it text, okay, only because it shouldn't even be text. I should have done this. I should have thought about this earlier. This should have probably been a little bit more intuitive, or a little bit more sensical. If I would call this title, for example, and then this would have been title, I think that would have been better. Maybe it's not too late. How about we try that? Because I think if let's just do that. Because if I call this text, this kind of gets confused with this, and it makes you almost want to think that you mean that this name should be a text instead of a number or something like that. So I think it's better if we actually make this more meaningful. So let's do title instead. And now, because we did that, obviously we need to come over here and do title as well. I don't think, we probably need to do something to the task item now, because the task item doesn't know what the heck just happened. It's gonna look for text and it's not gonna find it. So let's go into the task item here and find the task item here, and then right here, that's gonna be title. That's fine. Let's see what's behind there. See if there's anything there that is mentioning text. Nope. Okay, that's good there. And that seems to be compiling, but that doesn't seem to be. Let's see, let's just run it one more time. You know what, our data needs to change as well. So let's change that quickly. Let's change that to title, title, and title. And now it should work. All right, let's give it a minute. We can close that. We can close our task item. We're not gonna use that. Okay, this compile, let's refresh. Okay, good, we're good. All right, so we saved the day. It's gonna be titled. I like this a lot better. All right, so now we can close that and back to the, okay, so back to here, back to where we were here. All right, so just like we added that, now we need to copy that, and on this one right here, this is the day, so we're gonna control D so we can get both at the same time and put day in there, and then on the input reminder here, control D to select both, and reminder. Cool. So now we have access to all of our properties here. So just to show you what I mean, if I were to put underneath the form here, if I were to put title, yeah, if I were to put title there, what would happen? Let's finish, let's wait for this to finish out the generating, and then I can show you. Alright, so now that that's done, if I were to write something here, you can see in the bottom here how it's also putting whatever I put here, it will put it here. That's because it's dual binding. That's the magic of this. That's the magic of this dual binding thing. Alright, so let's just get rid of that. And then one more thing that I want to do is on the form here, we're going to make use of our ng submit. So the ng submit is the same thing as our ng submit does the same thing as basically unsubmit and things like that for normal forms, but because Angular wired it a little bit differently in the back, then when you go and set up a function that this is going to be triggering, obviously, right? That function doesn't no longer have to do prevent default and things like that. Normally you will have to have a prevent default on the button that on this button right here, this submit task button, because otherwise the focus is going to go to it, and when you hit enter somewhere by accident, when you're actually just meant to hit enter to just enter what's in there, not to submit. So you don't want it to arbitrarily, you know, or accidentally just submit prematurely. You want it to submit when you click, so you want to prevent all other functions that the button comes with out of the box with, and just make sure that it only submits when you actually mean to submit by clicking. Alright, so on this ng submit, we are going to give it a function name, so that's going to be unsubmit. So unsubmit, and then we're going to pick that up. We're going to save this file because we are pretty much done here, as far as I know. Yep, we're pretty much done here, and we can close it if you want, actually. And now we're going to go back to our component, and we're going to wire it. So we have already a break there because the function doesn't exist, so don't worry, we're going to do that now. Alright, so we have our we're starting our unsubmit there. So just to make sure that this is working, let's go ahead and put a what are we gonna do? Yeah, let's go ahead and set up an object. So we're gonna set up an object that is going to be a collection. Okay, think of this as a task collection that we did earlier in other in this service, right? So this is basically the same thing. This is going to be a collection point where I'm going to basically collect whatever is in here. So think of it as harvesting, right? You're going out to your orchard to pick up some apples. You bring a basket and you pick all your apples inside the basket, and then you bring this basket and do whatever you want to do with it. Well, consider this right here your basket, right? Where you're going to pick up the text and the day and the reminder and the reminder, and put it in this basket so you can take it somewhere else, right? And submit it to the data, to the kitchen. Alright, so obviously we're not going to call this basket, and this is not a good syntax. This is just pseudocode, okay? Get used, sometimes you will have to use pseudocode, and this is what pseudocode is right here, is you talking yourself through a line of code without actually writing code. Just writing what's in your head, basically, as it makes sense in your head, and then turning that into real code will be the actual code, will be the syntax code. But this right here is what's called pseudocode. It helps when you don't know, when you're trying to figure out how your logic should work, to write it out in pseudocode, just so you have it, so you have your thoughts on writing, okay? And then you can follow this up. So just like I just did that piece of pseudocode there to kind of help me, I'll just go ahead, and I know I need a variable to store the products in my basket. And the basket, obviously, it could be called basket if you wanted to, but I'm not going to call it basket. We're going to call it new task, and that's got to equal something, right? And then the object that is going to have the collection of properties, and then the properties. So the properties are actually this was all very close to what I actually meant to do, okay, like that. The only difference is that they have to equal something. So I'm going to create a property called text, which is going to be equal to whatever is in this text. And I'm going to create one that is called day. Oh, wait a minute. There's no text. Title. Now I got used to the text part that I'm just writing text anyway. So this is going to be equal to this day, and then the reminder, which is going to be equal to this reminder. There you go. So I have my collection point already done. Now I can get rid of this if I want to, because I don't need it. Pseudocode already served this purpose, so it's done. So I have that right there, and now it's time for me to go ahead and send it, or on the click of the button. But this button right here is not going to be. We're not going to do the actual connection to the service and all that from here. We're gonna do this from the task component, the bigger component, the parent. So because of that, because we're not gonna do it here, we're gonna do it somewhere else. We gotta do an emit. We gotta emit the action, the on click, because you gotta click on this, right? But we wanted that when we click on it, that it's done somewhere else. So we have to do an emit. So output. We gotta bring in output, and we gotta bring in event emitter. At some point Angular is gonna get smarter and put these two things together. I don't see how. I guess there is a way that we can use them separately, but why not just put them together? And if you use it, you use it. And if you don't, you don't. It's already there. Alright, whatever. Alright, so up here we're gonna bring in our output decorator. And then we're gonna make the output. We're gonna name it add task. Yeah, sure. And then that's going to be a type of event emitter task. Okay, so now I can tell you right now that that's going to produce an error. And then new event emitter method. All right, so that's going to produce an error because we haven't brought in the interface. So we got to bring in import task from models, this one, and now it works. So now it is going to check for this right here, because it's reading that the add task should event and emit that has this type of schema inside the object that it's going to send, if that makes any sense. If it doesn't, it will. Just give it time. Like everything in life, you got to do this a bunch of times for it to actually start kicking in. Okay. So now we're gonna go ahead and emit the event, and we're gonna call this this add task, which is what we created above, right here, this add task. And then this add task will be emitted, but we are going to send our new task. We're gonna send this guy through, right? So we can do something with it. Otherwise, the button is gonna be, the action is gonna pass, but there isn't gonna be anything in it. All right. So now that that's done, now we can go to the task component, tasks component, and then in the task component, actually we need to go to the tasks component HTML first and make the actual call to the add task. Yep, to the add task, and I think that's what we called it, right? Yeah, add task, and then was it? Yeah, to the add task. And now that we have that, we're going to now make the actual function that is going to run it, and we're going to call that new task. Yeah, new task. Normally you would do this and it will be fine, but that's not quite gonna work. Task components, that's quite not gonna work, and I wasn't exactly sure why, but it didn't work for me when I was trying it. So instead, I'm going to log out, or not log out, but capture the event instead, because this button right here is going to send an event, and inside that event there's going to be a payload which has that task that is being sent with. So you can get it from the payload if you can't get it from the actual object. If you can't send an actual object, then at least grab the event so you can grab the payload in it. It'll work. Alright, so now that that's done, I can go ahead and do that, and now this function doesn't exist, so it's gonna break, and we're gonna go to the task component, and right underneath this toggle task right here, we're going to create it there. Now in this case, we are actually going to target the task. Yep, we're gonna target the task that is being sent in from the event, and we're gonna typecast it to task. And just for now, we're gonna go ahead and console log this so we can see it. Let's just do that and see if it works. So let's do a quick console log here, and this is still generating, so it's gonna take a minute. And I'm going to just write out whatever and set a reminder and submit, and boom, there it is. So we are getting stuff. All right, so now that that's good and I know that that's working, just gonna head and close that or whatever. Now we gotta call in the service so that we can actually make this thing persist in the database. So I'm gonna call in this task service, and now I'm going to make a new space for my post request. Yep. Alright, so what is this going to call? Add task, I guess. It's my add task, and that's going to take in a task of type task. Just like this. I'm actually gonna bring in the observable as well. There you go. And now inside there, we are going to return, let's just bring in this in here because it's going to be pretty similar, but instead that's going to be a post request of task, and we're not sending in the ID or anything like that. Instead we are sending just this root plus task. Yeah, this right here. Let's just take this out. Yeah, let's just take that out, and we're gonna send in this app root task, and then HTTP options, because it is a post request, so we have to make sure that the options are sending application JSON. Okay, so that works out fine. And this task, which is the object that you send in, perfect, this works. So go ahead and save it, and now we're gonna make use of this add task by going back to the component that we were just in here, and let's just use this right here. We're not gonna need this console anymore, and we're gonna say this task service, and we're gonna call the add task method that we created in the service. And we're going to send the task, obviously, and we're going to subscribe to it. But in the subscription, we want to set up a function, and we're going to in there also send the task object that we created. And then now in there we're going to say this task collection, which is your object here, right, that you're going to create. This task collection, which is not your object, the array. You gotta rebuild the array. This task collection is a form array. It's the entire thing. So we're gonna rebuild the array, and then in this task collection, we're going to unshift. This is a new one. You could push. You could use push instead of unshift. If you use push, it sends the task to the bottom. Now, it doesn't make sense for it to be to the bottom because this is not something that I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to scroll all the way to the bottom to see where you just added. It should add to the top. Okay, I like it better that way, I think, but if you want to use push, that's fine. So we're gonna unshift, and what are we going to unshift? We're gonna unshift the task, what we're sending, and we're gonna go ahead and save that. And now, if I recall correctly, this is all done. so let's go ahead and add some crap in here, whatever, set a reminder and submit the task. And it didn't save it. It didn't save it. Let's see what happened. Let's see the network tab. Did I do it too early? Is that why I didn't? Let's try it again. All right, let's try it again. Let's do some crap here. Let's do some of that. Let's do some of this. Send it. Okay, yeah, I just did it before it compiled. Before I gave Angular a chance to compile down here. So sorry. All right, so you see, I sent it, and you know I can toggle it off, toggle it back on. Everything seems to be working perfectly, and everything is fine. Now I don't like that this didn't clear out. So one more thing. Right here, after I emit the new task. So after I emit the new task, what I'm going to do is I am going to basically bring these guys here and I'm gonna make this title, yeah, should not even brought that. I'm gonna change everything, and I'm gonna initialize it to 0 again, and yeah, this day I'm gonna initialize that to 0. I don't even know why I did that, why I copied and pasted if it's not going to even be. Alright, let me separate these with semicolons so there's no issues in there. And then this reminder equals false. Reinstantiated, basically false, it's just gonna clear it out. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that and save it, and this time let's give it enough space, enough time. Okay, so it put it right back in the bottom, huh? We'll look at that in a second. Alright, let's do another one. Let's do this, let's do that. Sure, set a reminder, submit it. Alright, it cleared it and it added it to the top. And then when we refresh it, it sends it to the bottom. Alright, so let's look at the DB.json here and see what happens. Okay, so I see what's going on here. So technically speaking, this wouldn't happen in a real and live environment with a real API. The backend developer is the one that is going to be generating the IDs for you, just like the JSON server is doing here. So that part is fine. Technically speaking, the onshift will be respected, and whatever is being sent is going to be added to the top of the array. But the way the JSON server is doing it here, they are actually forcefully adding things to the bottom by maybe sorting it by ID. I'm not sure. So because it's showing on shifting on the UI, but not here, the reason mainly is because it's on shifting on this guy here. What is it? It's on shifting on this guy here. So it's creating an object in here, but then when that post to the API over there, then it's being reorganized like that. So when I get it back, it shows the reorganized way. So that's an anomaly that wouldn't really happen. That's JSON server doing it, and that's why it looks like this. All right, let's just make sure that we can delete this. Yep, there it is, gone. And let's delete this one too. Gone. Cool. All right, we are done. We are done with the create. There's still a few more things we have to do, but we're almost there. All right, guys. So I'll see you in the next one then.